Hey, ya hosers, Bowen here, and we are with Jenny and Kaitlyn Chloe, and we're going to be talking about the Alabama abortion ban with our very first Nuanced Nonsense podcast. And we should be going live right about now.
We are. Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Of course.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think
Thanks
it's
for
great that
coming
you
in.
guys have started up a podcast. I love promoting new podcasts. I think anytime we have new stuff and new perspectives on things, it's really good.
Okay, yeah, well, I've been trying to do YouTube for a while, but
Yeah.
Jenny wanted to start a podcast, and hey, that works. Now we're generally going to be talking about all sorts of women's issues. Since Jenny and I are both transgender, we're probably going to be talking about that a lot, but also a lot of other things too, like this Alabama abortion ban. So, but I'm haven't had any chance to research it. Why don't you give us basically an overview of what's going on?
Well, so a lady that lives actually not too far from where I do here in North, an anti-abortion bill that was so bad that it would definitely be unconstitutional. Like she knew that it would pass because there's not really any way for more liberal leaning people to stop anything because there aren't very many liberal people in our state Congress. So um, she wrote a bill with the intent of it obviously passing, obviously being unconstitutional, so it would be challenged and it would go up through the appeals process all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, all of the other states that are doing this are doing a similar thing. It's not just about abortion in their state, it's about like overwhelming the appeals court system to the point where the Supreme Court pretty much has to take it up and make a ruling on it so that they can try to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's the whole intent of it.
Okay, and for those of us who aren't Americans, Roe v. Wade is a legal precedent that allows abortions.
Right. It was passed in the 70s. I believe it was 73, I think
72,
was
was
when,
that?
huh?
72, was it?
Might have been. It was in
Yeah.
the early 70s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, and the one in Alabama is particularly bad. There are each state that has one, there are several now. They have different characteristics. The one in Alabama, while it doesn't seek to prosecute any women who may or may not get an abortion, obviously it's illegal in the state, but if you leave the state to get an abortion or you somehow get one illegally within Alabama, they don't prosecute the woman, but they will prosecute any doctors who do so. And the jail time for the doctor, any doctor who does so, is anywhere from 10 to 99 years in prison for performing an abortion.
Yeah, so
And
basically a life sentence.
yes, which is more than what a rapist would get
Yeah.
if a woman was pregnant, because and I bring up rapists because in the Alabama law specifically, there is no exception for rape or incest. And a lot of the states have exceptions for those things, but Alabama does not.
That's pretty disgusting. I have heard of something else coming from this. It might be a different bill, but wasn't there, like, if you go out of the state and get an abortion, then they'll prosecute you for that or something like that?
That's Ohio.
Okay, that's Ohio.
Hmm.
All right.
Yes, there are several of these, and they're all pretty horrendous. Each in their own way, more than the other. So they're all pretty equally bad. But I think one of the main reasons that a lot of people consider Alabama's to be the worst is because of the life sentence for doctors and
Yeah.
for the no exceptions. There is if the mother's life is in danger,
Okay.
but I'm not really sure how that works with the doctor performing an abortion um,
Yeah,
mandate. I'm
because
not
I
really
thought there
sure
was
how
no
it all works
exceptions
because,
for the doctors at all, is there?
well, yeah, and that's what I don't know. I don't know if the doctor is allowed to perform it if the woman's life is in danger. I don't know. So I'd imagine so. That would only make sense, or else the doctor would be faced with a choice. Either they save the woman, which they, by their um, oaths and things that they have taken, they have to do, or they go to, if they do that, then they face going to prison. So I can't imagine that there wouldn't. I feel like the doctors would be able to, but that's part I don't know about this.
Let's
But one
face
thing
it, the legislators don't care. It's not about that. It's all about a few states that are overtly religiously guided, wanting to control the rest of the country.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Go ahead, May.
Oh, I'm just agreeing.
Yeah, and it's not even just about controlling the country. They want to control women. They say it's about, pro-life and about babies, but to be honest with you, a few days before this Alabama bill passed, one of the amendments to the bill that the few Democratic Congress people tried to get put into the bill was something that said that basically the woman would, because they're forcing you to continue carrying and to term if it makes it that far, that the woman would get free prenatal care, like on the state, and that the resulting child, whatever, would get free medical care until the age of 3. So that because they're forcing this on women, this would help make sure that they have health care. And it was voted down like 23-6. So it's not really, they don't care about life. They don't care about people. They don't care about health or babies. They just care about forcing their religious beliefs on other people and controlling what women do with their bodies.
Okay. So yeah, it's all about control then. It's got nothing to do with really anything. Well, control and religion, nothing to do with much with anything else.
It's like a backdoor way of getting around the separation of church and state.
Yeah. That's like that just wouldn't fly here. Yeah, that guy.
Don't be so sure of that, mate. It's I mean, there's been talk in Queensland in Australia of doing something similar.
It's
And there is definitely movements there. The religious right really does want to kind of push this agenda, and not just in America, all around the world.
that's true. Actually, our previous Prime Minister Stephen Harper was very much pro-life, unfortunately. But even he couldn't do anything about it. And would have been one to do something. We could challenge our government through a human rights complaint, and that would basically go above the what the government can do. There's been a lot of that going on in Ontario for a few things as well. So we do have options that can basically tell the government what to go do with themselves.
Does Canada have a Bill of Rights?
Yeah, we have a basic Bill of Rights.
Yeah, see, we don't in Australia.
Interesting.
There are certain rights that are enshrined within our constitution, but there is actually no Bill of Rights here.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not super political. I actually got political to get rid of Stephen Harper solely for that. And I kind of stayed political.
As an American, you may or may not know this, but we really in America only care about our news.
Yeah. We care more about your news than ours sometimes.
Well, you know what's interesting is, like, I mean, I care about
the
world
world with the same, mate.
Well, I care about world news, and I'll be honest with you. I don't know if have either of you watched CNN International?
I don't watch stuff. I don't even have cable.
Well, CNN International is actually pretty good. They go over all kinds of world news and shit that's going on everywhere around the globe. And it's good. but like regular CNN, like that we get in the United States, sucks. Like all they do is talk about Trump all the time. And
Oh.
it's really frustrating because um it's hard to get good global news of stuff that's going on in other places. And so I think and I think it's important for people to be informed about stuff like that. I try to keep up with news in other places in the world as much as I can, but as far as like knowing how other people's governments are set up and things like that, I really don't know a whole lot about that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Americans I speak with on a regular basis seem to be confused about our parliamentary system, unless they actually watch a parliament in session, and then they think it's entertaining. Parliament can be
Oh,
really vicious.
the British Parliament is definitely entertaining. I don't understand how they ever get anything done. Do they ever get anything done? I mean, they just yell at each other. It's fascinating.
Rarely.
Ours is kind of the same.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is Australia's the same too?
The Australian and Canadian systems are both based on the Westminster system.
Yeah.
The difference is that our upper houses aren't based on hereditary peers; it's based on elections. So, in a sense,
Yeah, okay.
our
like your Senate
systems are more democratic.
Is it based on hereditary? Like, is it based on?
Yeah, the upper house in the UK is based on hereditary. It's all the peers. All the,
okay, yeah.
And,
so it's kind of oligarchy kind of shit.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm not super familiar with the British. I don't know what power they actually have. Like our Senate is
the House
useless.
of Lords is all peers. It's all people with titles and all appointed by the Queen. So technically, they're her representatives, and she gets the final say on signing things into law. So whilst it's a democracy, there's still parts of the old monarchy sitting in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, even in Australia, which is probably something nobody here knows about, we had a whole government dismissed by a Governor General, and he's basically the appointed person of the Queen.
Really?
Because that's how Commonwealth countries. Yeah, it was back in the 70s. We had a government that was put in, but they only had control in one house, and the other house blocked supply. Similar to what you guys have had in the US, where you're not having any money coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of the Governor General saying, "Look, you guys have to sort this out," he stepped in, removed the current government from power, put the opposition in power, and then made the opposition called an election. So the opposition became the government before there was an election, and then they were in a position where they could win the next election from what had happened. It almost caused a revolution in our country.
I didn't know about that.
It's only a case that Aussies are so laid back that we didn't actually go to war over it, because the country was very split over it. Yeah.
Because they weren't emus.
Gough Whitlam at the time. Well, may we say God save the Queen, but no one will save the Governor General. Yeah, because he didn't overstep his powers. It was there within the Constitution. The Constitution was written like that because when Australia first became its own country, that was sort of left there so that if England didn't like something we did, they could go to the Queen and say, "Hey, stop them. Tell your Governor General to stop these people. We can pull the government out."
We have the same.
What happened originally, and it was still sitting there in our Constitution, and we used the power.
I'm pretty sure we still have all the same stuff.
They're terrifying. Some of the stuff that's in the constitutions that were set up because of this, the Commonwealth countries, is quite terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, and the government. I don't know if the Governor General needs to actually speak with the Queen what's going on there. And the most that part of our government has ever done, to my knowledge, is denied I can't remember his name, but he's a controversial figure, denied him a passport to get out of the so that's the only thing that has done for in my lifetime anyways, in I don't know 40 or 50 years. probably. So they do usually keep their hands out of what's going on, and it's mostly just ceremonial. But it can be very
that's
the
thing,
power is
most
still
of us don't
there.
actually realize what's in our constitutions, and there are certain powers given to governor generals and those heads of state that they could use if they chose to.
Yeah,
and it down from the old Commonwealth thing. It's one of the reasons why Australia's had a huge debate over the years about whether to become a republic.
Okay.
And separate from the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't really care all that much.
yeah, that's part of our problem too. Because I mean, Australians are very much like Canadians. We actually just don't give a fuck, really.
Yeah, we're too busy. We're too busy calling each other shitheads in Parliament.
Yeah.
And then there's America.
Or recalcitrants over here. That's the word.
Well, that's something that Trudeau actually called someone in Parliament, and it was a big deal. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're off topic.
Oh yeah, we are. So yeah, just that wouldn't fly. Our Parliament would probably shoot down an abortion bill like that. Possibly even with a conservative majority. So
well, I'm really hoping that the Supreme Court will as well. I don't know with how the Supreme Court is not supposed to be political at all. It's not supposed to be about Republicans and Democrats. It's not supposed to be about right-leaning and left-leaning. They're supposed to interpret the Constitution. That is their job. But it's become more politicized in the past, I don't know, quite a bit more in the last 20 or so years than it used to be. Which is a little terrifying because the Supreme Court is for life, right? So when you get nominated and confirmed and you swear in as a justice on the Supreme Court, you are a justice for life, or until you choose not to be. So we can't get rid of these people. And so when you start politicizing these justices and making it like this person, like what's the guy, the asshole that just got put in?
Kavanaugh?
Yes, yeah. Kavanaugh. Thank you. I was blanking. So when you get a guy like Kavanaugh in, who Trump knows damn well doesn't like abortion. I mean, nobody likes abortion, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Who doesn't think that abortion should be a thing. Of course, when he was in his hearings, he did say that Roe v. Wade is settled law. But I don't think, given the opportunity, I'm not sure given the opportunity that he would vote that it's settled. I'm not sure that he would do that. But we're definitely right leaning on our Supreme Court now. It's much more conservative than it was. And it's a little frightening, to be honest. Not that me personally, my personal choice is I would never get an abortion. That's my personal choice. Circumstances, really, no matter, unless of course it's going to kill me and I have to for a medical reason. I would not terminate a pregnancy. But that's my choice, and I don't think that my choice should dictate someone else's choice. So I think it's really important that women be able to have that option, because it's just medical care between a woman and her doctor. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like I
my
can have
addition to yours, Kaitlyn, would be if the child was a product of rape.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advocate that any woman should have to go through that, because it's a constant 9-month reminder and afterwards of what happened. And psychologically, I couldn't. I'm in those two situations. If your life is in danger, or you've been raped and that's why you're pregnant, definitely.
But I honestly am not sure. I'm honestly not sure that I could, even if it was a product of rape. I don't think that I could. But I think that women should be able to do it should be able to have an abortion in that, especially in a case like that, without any kind of backlash,
Oh,
because
yeah, there should be
Yeah,
no backlash on people
yeah,
having a choice.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably going to be something that you can only really make a call on in the unfortunate and disgusting circumstance that it actually happens.
yeah.
I mean, I know I can have no part in creating children anymore, so and I don't have any, so um I'm not into the discussion. I'm pro-choice. That's all I have to say. But there is kind of a similarity with something that I am a part of, and that is the whole "our bodies, our choice" thing. And that goes with transitioning and deciding how we're going to transition. A lot of trans people are using a lot of the same arguments that are being used for abortion to say, like, we need to transition, we need to do it this way or that way or however we want to, as
Mhm.
opposed to however other people want to force us to, or not at all. Um, so there is kind of a similarity in the arguments that's being made. So I think it's definitely an important argument. But really, I do take some issues with some of the arguments that pro-choice people make sometimes. I'm not necessarily a fan of them, and I don't think that they're overly effective at arguing with pro-lifers, to be honest. But other than that,
For
it's like,
for example, what are some of the things that pro-choice people say that you think are bad arguments?
I'm not a fan of the zygotes or whatever stage of development we're at is just a clump of cells, and I think that especially for the pro-life crowd, that's just they're not going to connect with that. They're not going to see it that way. They're going to see no difference between basically a freshly fertilized egg and a child coming out. So I think when I'm watching them respond to that, like, I don't see that being a productive argument. And then some people are just like abortion parties for everybody. I think that that's going way too
Oh
far
yeah,
as
that's
an
yeah.
argument. I've seen people using those arguments as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's I'm just really not a fan of that one because I see it. I feel it's unproductive. It's not connecting with the people that we're arguing with. But people keep using it.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it doesn't connect with them. I think part of it is that there is a distinction between the different stages of pregnancy and a baby. Um, Pro-life people act like a baby that has been born is no different than a zygote. Well, it is very different. They are very different things. I agree that they're not going to connect with that because they don't understand the science. They don't care to understand the science. All they care about is from a biblical perspective. Um, God said, "I knew you in the womb." And that is the only phrase that they need to argue their point. That's the only phrase that they feel is necessary, that it does not matter what stage it's in. But scientifically, we know that it does actually matter. Um, but I think there's a certain way to try to have that discussion. But I think any way you have the discussion, I think you're probably right. That is not going to land with them.
Yeah,
It may be true, but it isn't going to land.
yeah. It's just yeah. Like, I watch this as an outsider, and I just see, like, we can repeat that until we're blue in the face. They're never even if they see it that way, they're still never going to be able. They're still never going to connect to the argument because they're looking at the end, not the middle or the start.
Right.
So
This
that's really my only. Those are really only the only two things that I see that are kind of I find to be unproductive, but
yeah.
that's just me.
can I
It always
address what
amazes,
you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it always amazes me the cognitive dissonance there, where they talk about I knew you in the womb, but then they ignore the fact that the Bible promotes a way of having an abortion, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, you can't have it both ways.
But they can, and they do.
It just boggles my mind. It
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I address the whole how these kind of arguments apply to the transition issue?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it.
Because I agree with you. I think that how or when or how much a trans person actually transitions should be between them and their doctor. I think that it should be covered under medical care, because if you consider, which I mean, it's not something that I can personally connect with because I'm not transgender, but I've heard enough people talk about how their brain and their thoughts and their feelings don't match the body that they're sitting in. And that can be psychologically damaging, I believe. And like I said, I haven't experienced that, but I've talked to enough people and I think seen enough stories to where I understand how psychologically damaging that can be. So I think that it is medically important for a person to be able to decide when and how much you transition, because there are some people. I think it's really interesting, because I think, Jenny, you're fully transitioned, right?
Yeah.
And then May, you like being chick with dick, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you're the one who said it, not me.
But you talk about that on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. So I think, and if you're each happy with that and where you are, I think that's fine. I don't understand why other people care so much. I really don't understand why other people care so much how you're comfortable in your own body.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are other trans people who care, and it's really disheartening.
I think the problem is a bigger problem within the trans community than it is outside of it. Because outside, those who don't support us whole bolus. It doesn't matter how much you transition, you're not supported.
Yeah.
But within, so the hate is universal. But within the trans community, the number of trans people who go, no, you're not trans if you didn't do this, this, and this. And no, there's lots of reasons why people don't fully transition. I don't even think that's a valid term, saying fully transition. But
well, as far as I'm concerned,
there are medical grounds, there are personal grounds. There's just the fact that, like May, you're non-binary, so you don't have that same level of dysphoria.
I will say that a lot of the people who don't would say, that you have to do this, and this, do say that if you have medical grounds not to, then they're not going to count that, because you will have health issues that prevent you. But
not all.
Yeah, and some of them are more or less. Some things are okay and other things aren't. But yeah.
But also, why should you have to give your medical history to somebody for them to accept whether or not you are trans? Like,
Exactly.
It boggles my mind. Like, I don't have to like flash my stuff for somebody to or you know what I mean? I really don't understand people's. I don't even know. I'm the word I want to use is fascination, but I don't know. Obsession. It seems like an obsession. I don't understand.
I think it's got more to do with them than us.
Yeah, that's what I find.
I honestly think some of these people just have just an internal fascination with people's genitalia.
Well, one thing that I've noticed is that all of these people are like on the very far end of being uncomfortable with their birth sex, right? On the extreme, more than I could ever possibly imagine. And they're kind of if you're not like me, you're not if you're not exactly like me, you're not trans, is what I see from a lot of them. Like arguing with them and stuff, because some of them don't necessarily like people like me. Um, Actually, most of them don't. Some of them, there's a whole. The internal politics of the trans community are insane.
It's not good for us as a community. I'll tell you that.
No.
You think that the gay community is fractured by different people within it? It's worse than the trans community. It's way worse.
It really is.
It's really ideological, like the way that people think. It's interesting because you see it in all the communities. I mean, like you're talking about it in the trans community, in the gay lesbian community, you see it in different types of, like, in the furry community you see it, in the atheist community you see it. It's like these fractures where people can't just step outside of some ideological position and be like, okay, like, it really doesn't matter what is in your pants unless I'm fucking you, and if I'm fucking you, I'm fine with whatever's in your pants. So, like,
exactly.
Am I allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like, I guess I just don't see why people hold on to these ideological positions so strongly, because especially when it comes to, like, the intersection between atheism and the LGBT or GRSM community, like, when it comes to that, and people just you feel like they've gotten out of religion, so you've let go of the whole ideological type of thinking, but really a lot of people don't, because they hold on to them for these other types of things, like you're talking about, like certain trans people. If you're not like me, or you don't do it like me, then it's not the right way to do it. That's a really religious, ideological kind of way of thinking.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah. It's not just the trans community. I get hate, I get hate on by lesbians for calling myself a lesbian and being trans.
Why do they care? That's what I don't understand. Why do they care?
Because they're lesbians and they don't like dick, and they are so they don't think that anyone else who likes dick, even if it's exclusively on a woman, can be a lesbian. They have to be bi, because
I'm sorry. I
bet
mean,
they use dildos.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was getting ready to say. I'm sorry, but there are a lot of lesbians who use dildos. So they actually do like dick. They just don't like it on a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like go home and let your butch strap on.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess to me, it's hard for me to understand some of these people, because I try to understand people by trying to put myself in their position and what they might be going through, and try to think about and understand what their experiences might be like. So that's how I try to understand people. I just cannot for the life of me understand why people care so much about things that don't seem meaningless. I don't mean that in a degrading way. I just mean, like, it really doesn't matter. You're the person that you are, and it should not matter how long your hair is, or if you wear makeup, or what genitalia you have, or who you're sexually attracted to, or if you're not sexually attracted to anybody. I don't understand why these things matter to other people outside of your, outside of the group that you've decided that it matters to you. I don't know why it matters to anybody else.
Yeah, I don't understand what
I don't get it either.
Like, they talk about, like, woman's erasure or cis woman's erasure or whatever. It's like, we're women. Even I count as a woman.
Yeah, that happens with the whole trans women thing, which I don't get. I don't care. I consider you a woman. If you tell me you're a woman, you're a woman. You know, it doesn't matter.
Awesome.
It literally could not matter less to me if you're a decent person and you try to be, you know, if you're nice to me and to other people and you try to be a decent person and I enjoy your company, I really don't care. Like I really
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, like, I don't know. Well, I am very different from most other people, right? Even from a lot of other trans people, I'm kind of really out there. So it's
You've
like
been a great education to me, mate. You really have.
that's yeah, that's cool.
But that's what
I
makes
like
this
being like that.
interesting.
But like because I know I'm so different, I really am like how can I not really accept other people for who they are when I am so far out there and different. Even though if you met me in real life, you'd think I was boring and normal. Don't pay attention to how crazy I am on Twitter.
Well, I mean, to be honest, people, I don't know. I think that's one of the things that make people interesting is how their life experiences shape them. And I think that is what makes people interesting. And it may be weird because it's not like somebody else, but I think I look at that as a good thing. And I mean, similar to the whole abortion issue with it, you don't know somebody else's experiences and what they're going through. So you could ask, or you could just get to know them as a person, and that is, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
100% with you.
yeah, like I know that I had the option of freezing my sperm. Uh, I think I would get that done for like 5 years.
Mhm.
Government paid. But I chose not to, mostly because I can't see myself in 5 years being in a position where I would use that. It would be a waste of my time and government money, basically. Um,
Yeah.
and I could see, maybe being uh, a cis woman, and getting pregnant in my current situation, I would not be able to support a child under any circumstances right now. So I can see where different people would have different situations where, that might be an option someone would want to exercise. In my case, if and it might, or someone might not want to exercise that option. But I can definitely see where there are a lot of different reasons why someone would have an abortion. Um, I don't think it would be. I again don't think it would be something that I would be able to go through in my current situation, just because I could not support a child.
Right. But I mean, there's, even if there's not I don't, I hate to put it this way because you know how people mince on words, a valid medical reason, like some sort of life-threatening kind of situation or some other kind of medical reason, if it's just a emotional reason or just because you can't afford a baby, right? You know what I mean? No matter the reason, um, I feel like there is a case to be made for giving kids up for adoption. But
Oh,
here's the problem. The system is full of kids already, and we have abortion right now. So yeah, adoption is a great option for people who don't want to have an abortion but can't afford a kid. That is a great option. But I think people should have the options of whatever they think is best for them. And if they think abortion is the best thing for them, then that's what they should do. And um I'm it gets harder, abortion gets harder for me the further along in the pregnancy that you are. When you're in the third trimester, to me, this is my line. um which I still don't think that I have the right to tell someone else, but this is definitely my line where I start to get super uncomfortable. If the fetus could survive, could be born however it's born, either naturally or through cesarean or whatever, if the baby could be born and survive on its own with, you know, basic kind of medical care, like even if it needs a little bit of help,
Yeah.
to me, that's too late.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And that resonates with me because I was born at very premature, actually. I was born somewhat premature. I think something like that.
That is early.
And that was in 1984, and they had to stick for I don't know how long. But this is what my mom told me. So yeah, that definitely there is definitely a line of where, you know, it's not a fetus anymore. It could just use more time, but yeah, it can probably survive outside.
And that's when it's hardest for me. And here's the thing: if there's some kind of medical emergency at that point in time, in which if you didn't, I'm going to use the phrase terminate the pregnancy for a reason. So at that point, if you don't terminate the pregnancy, then the woman will die. If you could actually just take the baby out, you know, like if you could just, if cesarean, if the woman can't go into labor or whatever, if there was a way that you could get it out and both survive, to me that would be the ideal situation. Even if that would be the ideal situation, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I feel like if it can survive on its own or survive with basic medical care outside, then it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that every attempt should be made to save the infant.
Yeah.
If it's possible.
If it's viable. Now there are other situations where I know that I guess, is it the governor of Virginia, the one who stepped in it with the whole blackface mess? You remember that guy?
Oh yeah.
Vaguely.
He's a mess. Where he was talking about a very specific situation where a baby was born, but it was like very not necessarily disfigured, but was not viable. It wasn't going to survive. It had there were too many things wrong with it, like its brain wasn't fully developed or its heart wasn't fully developed or whatever it was. And then at that point they had to, you know, make medical decisions. What are they going to do because of the quality of life that it would have even if it survived for any amount of time at all. So it was a very specific situation that he was talking about. And like our fucking president makes it out like, oh, you know, the baby's going to be born and then they're going to wrap it in a beautiful blanket and then they're going to decide whether or not they're going to kill it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not at all what's happening here. Like,
yes, wow.
that explains a lot of things that I've heard.
Yeah.
Where that was never, like, it was never explained to me like that.
Oh yeah.
So
the president totally stepped in it. What he said, it did not apply to what the governor of Virginia said. I can't remember his freaking name. I'm really bad.
I'm aware of the situation and I'm aware of arguments that have come from all of that, but I wasn't aware of like that part of it where you know, what Trump said and what was actually going on. That's just very informative to me.
Yeah, it's a disaster. The whole thing is a disaster. All these laws are a disaster. One of the main things, I don't know if you all know this, but one of the major factors in lowering the rates of abortion, do you know what one of the main factors is in lowering abortion rates? Access to abortion.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
It's true. Yeah. And you know, our government is trying to destroy Planned Parenthood and they're doing a pretty damn good job of it, to be honest. But like Planned Parenthood is all about planning Parenthood. So you don't have unwanted pregnancy. So you have birth control and know when and how to use it. So they do all kinds of sexual education, and they provide services to women in order to not have unplanned pregnancies. So that when they're ready, they can plan their pregnancy.
Yeah.
And
education is always better than just stopping people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And you're definitely not going to stop people from having sex. I mean, abstinence only education
or having
has
abortions.
been proven. Well, yeah, that too. Yeah.
Like we are. It's kind of a meme now, but our one of the Catholic schools, Holy Cross here in Peterborough, has a daycare.
Has a what?
In it. Has a daycare in it.
Uh-huh.
And I know someone who went to that school, and apparently a lot of students who go to the school use the daycare, even though it wasn't intended for that.
Oh.
Yeah, and this is like, what, like 10, 15 years ago in Canada? And that's our Catholic school board, where, like, students getting pregnant in our public school, our public high schools, this is a high school, are almost unheard of. Like, it happens, but very rarely.
Religious schools, they don't teach sex education. I went to Catholic school and we didn't have sex ed.
Yeah, like, I think they do, but I think they also try to teach abstinence only. But they give some of the basics of the biology of it. I think, but it's really kind of crazy. Like that.
Well, my
so
personal
even
opinion is the Catholic Church has a lot to answer for.
Oh yes. Yeah, they're pretty disgusting.
Not just because of kitty fiddling priests, but also because of prevalence of AIDS, because of lack of condom use, and unwanted pregnancy because of talking out against birth control. It's
and vast amounts of homophobia and transphobia, like within their the higher ups seem to be okay with it, but they're apparently all closeted gay people, and then like the mid-level people are all extremely homophobic.
I mean, they're worse than the US government, because it's all a bunch of men telling women what to do with their bodies.
Yeah.
Yes. And there aren't women. Women can't be in positions of power in the Catholic Church.
Yeah. That's I can't go on enough about how terrible they are. In general, there are some good ones, but I actually do want to go back to Planned Parenthood for 1 second, because they do more than just like sex ed and planning. They actually help people transition as well. Like they do informed consent, and they can actually get trans people on hormones and stuff like that too. So I just wanted to praise them more for being good, a good thing for your country.
Another reason why the Conservatives want to shut them down.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah. We actually did. I think it was it might have been last February. I don't think it was the February before. We've actually done a couple of Planned Parenthood charity drives, and we had the director of Planned Parenthood. I can't remember what the region's called. It's basically the southern region. She's in Atlanta, and we had her on the show, and we had Allie Jackson from Atheist Republic, and we had Matt Dillahunty and his wife, and so when this was back when the U.S. government defunded Planned Parenthood, and so it's really, I think it's a really important thing. I also think it's interesting that people are so misinformed and uninformed on this issue, because in the state of Alabama, I know you've probably heard that if you put together all of the services that Planned Parenthood provides, only 3% of that is abortion, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Well, in Alabama, of all of the providers, of all the few, it's a lot of the service providers and abortions that are performed in the state of Alabama, only 3% of abortions are even performed at a Planned Parenthood. They're 97% of them are other places.
Interesting. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, so Planned Parenthood is barely even a factor in the state of Alabama. Now, I don't know the stats everywhere else, but as far as Alabama goes, Planned Parenthood is basically a nothing. Like, I mean, not that it's not important, but in regards to who the, you know, crazy Christian people who stand out there and picket should picket, Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, that was an eye-opening video. That was well done to you guys.
Yeah, I watched
John
it.
was
It was
very
a while
brave.
ago.
Yeah, I was very nervous. I wasn't there. I was at work, and he just sends me a message, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go out to this this anti-abortion protest thing that's happening." And I was like, "You're gonna do? I'm sorry, what?" Because, you know, those kind of things can get dicey and dangerous. Those people are crazy. And then add on, we're in Alabama, so like people carry guns to the grocery store.
Oh, right.
So like these situations can be dangerous. And I was not really, I'll be honest, I was not pleased he was doing it at first. But I think it was the right thing to do. And, you know, afterward, he left and he sent me a message so that I knew that he was safe and whatever, because I didn't even know he was streaming it. Had no idea, no clue. And I told him, I asked him about it after, and he's like, look, they were streaming it from there, and all of these people are just standing there yelling at these women and these volunteers, and there's nobody there standing up for them. And he was like, I had to. They were right here in town, and I had to go and stand up for those people and for the women that go to that clinic. And, you know, then of course I got all gooey because my husband is like the best, right? But it was definitely an interesting situation, and what ensued on Facebook after was even worse.
Oh, I think I saw the fallout from that.
Yeah, that was pretty uncomfortable. I got some pretty uncomfortable messages from that. But no, I mean, I think one of the things that drives me and that drives John is standing up for people who maybe can't stand up for themselves. I mean, women who are walking into these clinics, I don't know if you've seen the video. There's one clinic that performs abortions in Kentucky, only one in the entire state. And volunteers line the path from the parking lot to the door. And there's a video that's circulating. I haven't seen it in a few days, but it's been circulating in the past, you know, couple months, with a lady who has 5 volunteers completely surrounding her, and she's hunkered underneath a coat and completely covered up, and they're completely surrounding her, trying to get her to the door, while these hateful, disgusting ass people lining the sidewalk on her way in are screaming these horrible things at her, and they don't know her situation at all. And
they don't care either.
They don't care. Like, she could have an ectopic pregnancy and have to have an abortion, or it would kill her. And like, they don't know. This could be like, she could be somebody who has had fertility issues, got pregnant, and has an ectopic pregnancy and has to terminate and be devastated. Like, she could be somebody who is generally pro-life. They have no idea what anybody is going through, and they don't give a fuck about that.
Hell,
All
it could
care about their ideology.
From what I know about Planned Parenthood, it could be someone having fertility issues trying to get pregnant in the first place.
Yes. And so it's really interesting. And so I think it's really important that person in that video, and so many like her, they have to be covered up and walked in, and covered up and walked out. And it's important that people who can stand up for them do, because it pains me to see things like that. It truly does.
Yeah, me too. It astonishes me how horrible people can be to each other.
Yeah, really,
they're terrible.
Especially as most of these people are people who preach love and peace.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing about love peace in any of their actions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've run into my fair share of like fire and brimstone, hate everyone.
Oh yeah,
Friggin' Christians
those
as
people
well.
are crazy. The freaking
Yeah.
Pentecostals, those people are nuts.
Actually,
They're nuts.
yes, we've been chatting with a trans guy, Upsy, and I
Yes,
think he said he was Pentecostal, and he's told me horror stories about getting away from that shit.
I didn't know that he was Pentecostal.
I think he said he is,
Yeah,
but I'm like, I've always been an atheist, so I don't really know all the denominations. I know like the Catholics and the United Church, and the United Church here in Canada is actually pretty good. You can only give
Yeah.
them they're still Christians, but you can really only give them praise because they're like awesome. They're at the front of the local Pride Parade.
Yeah, I actually grew up in the United Church.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, they're very forward thinking. I mean, there's
Yep.
gay priests in it, and
There's an atheist priest in Toronto.
that's
there's atheist
interesting.
There's an
priests
atheist
everywhere.
preacher.
That doesn't make sense. Why? Yeah.
I don't
Can you
know.
explain?
She speaks the actual message of what people say Christianity is trying to say. You know, love and happiness and love your neighbor and be good and the golden rule and all of that, and just avoids the God stuff.
Oh,
And
weird.
treats it all as like parables and analogies and all that kind of stuff. It was a big deal because they tried to get her kicked out. Right? They tried to have her kicked out from preaching when she's like, "Okay, I'm an atheist." But yeah, and my mom is United. But I never really believed any of it. So, and she never really pushed it on me. Um, yeah, it's like,
because they don't. They're fairly broad thinking.
Yeah.
Uniting Church people.
Yeah.
I think the Uniting Church in the US is different to how it is in Canada and Australia, though.
Yeah, probably, but it's less. What do you expect?
But
I've
for
actually
us,
never
Overly.
heard.
they're very forward thinkers.
Yeah, they might not even exist in the U.S.
I mean,
I've never
my
heard of,
dad,
like,
who
the
was a lay
United.
preacher, taught me to critically think.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, no, don't just believe this stuff. You go and examine it and come to your own conclusions. Well,
Yeah.
that led me down to being an atheist, but
Yeah.
but
like even the Catholics in Canada generally aren't. I've had run-ins with them. Nothing that needed to be reported to the authorities when I was younger, and even they're like you could cut out a few little things and a few big things that they do, and they would be fine in Canada, not like the ones in Britain. Like I think there's two churches that march in our local Pride Parade, and one of them is definitely the United, and I can't remember who the other one is. I think the Catholics might have had a small number of people, but like even everyone's just nicer here in Canada.
That is true. Canadians are always so, like, I don't know, so sorry about everything.
Oh, it's the stereotype is real, okay? If two Canadians walk within 6 inches of each other, they'll both apologize for it.
And I know so many Canadians through, like, doing the stuff that I do with YouTube and Twitter and everything. I've met so many Canadians, and it's
Yep.
hilarious. Like, it cracks me up because that is one thing that pretty much all of you have in common is you literally do apologize for all the things. It's the funniest. It's so funny. But it's really endearing. Like, it comes across to me as, like, I don't know, it's so, I like it.
Yeah.
It's really sweet.
The stereotype is real. It's like I say sorry more than any other word probably.
That's funny.
because like if we walk into the path of each other and have to move out of the way, we'll both apologize, no matter whose fault it actually is, because we both think it's our fault.
It's just
Yeah.
so polite. It's
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's refreshing because, I don't know, being an atheist activist and on, social media, a lot of people are dicks.
Yeah.
So having having the polite Canadian infusion into that is like, I mean, Shannon is is like, she always tries to, and sometimes she gets passionate about stuff, which is one thing I really like about her, and she always apologizes for getting passionate, which is one thing I don't like, because to me it's like, don't apologize for getting feisty. It was warranted, because here's the thing: in order to get Shannon in a heightened state of emotion, um it you have to do something, like, you really
Yeah.
do. And then she apologizes for it. That's the only time I don't like it, is when she apologizes for getting a little heated or emotional about something, because
Yeah.
usually in those cases it's warranted.
Yeah. Shannon's great. Her East Coast accent is amazing. So, yeah, we have different accents here. Well,
So we
we have the East Coast, we have Newfoundland, and we have everywhere else, and we have Quebec. So,
Yeah, I think most places have accents. I mean, even in the
yeah.
UK, even as
Oh,
small as the UK is, there are really widely varied accents
yeah.
that
The West End of
surprise.
town will have a different accent from the East End of town.
Yes, it's very strange.
Yeah, it's been explained to me. It's like, how in Africa the people have the largest genetic diversity.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
but it's kind of the same though, because excuse me, because English came from England. Like, there is a huge diversity of accents because that's where it started, and then when it exported, um, like, one accent went here, one accent went there, one accent went there. So
Hmm.
there isn't as much diversity of the accents in other um
Well, perhaps that, or perhaps it's even, to me, it's just the fact that they're so close and so different. Like in the US, there are dramatic differences in accent in some places, like Boston to Louisiana, for example. Um, it's significant, but they're also really far apart. And
yeah.
they were settled by different people, but it's it's significant. But then, like, in the UK, they're significant, but they're so close. So
Yeah.
that's what's weird to me, is how close together they are and how different they are.
Yeah, and an Ontario accent is not very much different from, like, a British Columbia accent on the other side of the continent. So,
Some of
it's
your American accents I find really hard to understand.
yeah.
What do you mean? I don't have an accent. You have an
Oh,
accent.
go on. Some of them.
I've actually been I've actually been joking that the Americans aren't going to be able to understand us at all.
Yeah.
That we're what?
I've been joking that the Americans aren't going to be able to understand us at all with a Canadian and an Aussie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we
That's
got
funny.
it was North Carolina. Went into a Walmart with my husband at the time, and it's the first time I'd ever had a greeter, because you guys have greeters and we don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, I turned to him after we went through. I thought everyone spoke English in America. I had no idea what they said to me at all.
Yeah. Southern accents can be quite interesting, and you can tell if you know them. If you know them, you can tell when you talk to somebody where in the South they're from, because an accent, like an Appalachian, like a Kentucky Appalachian accent, is very, very different from an accent of somebody in North Carolina. And then in Georgia, they have this like longer drawl. And so it's just and in Louisiana, it's very distinct in the different areas. And if you, even though Southern accent is kind of like piled together in one, there are very distinct Southern accents as well, but some of them are hard. I used to do, during the summers when I was in high school, I would go to southeastern Kentucky and to one of the poorest counties in the United States and do various kinds of work for the people who lived there. One lady, we re-roofed her house. Another one, we scraped all the paint off her house that was peeling off and primed it and painted it. I've dug ditches to lay water lines. I've dug or I've built porches, different things like that. Well, so there are some people there and they live in a holler. I mean, do you know what a holler is? No. Okay. A holler is a space like between two mountains, or between it's the area where two mountains meet, essentially. And
Okay.
it's called a holler. And so there's not a lot of access to hollers, like outside access. Usually they're really super small towns. And they don't really get a lot of exposure to the outside world. So they develop these super thick accents that you really can't understand. And so I mean, there were a couple of people there that I couldn't understand a damn word they were saying, and they were speaking English, sort of.
I mean, that's really interesting, because like our most, like the part of Canada that has the most accents is the East Coast, and it's like really confined. And then if you go to a place like that, out west, like say, I can't remember the name of a couple of the towns, but we have a bunch of towns like that too in the Rockies, right? So if you go out there, they don't really sound terribly too much different. So
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's language is weird. Like how accents develop and stuff is weird.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's one in England. Is it called Cockney? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Cockney.
It is, man. That's shit's something.
Yeah. I'm not super familiar with them.
There's vernacular. Like, I get that there's different vernacular, even though everybody's speaking English. Aussies call things different. Like, we call the same things different things, and that's just local vernacular. But then you have Cockney, and that is, I don't even know what to think about that. I don't even know. I don't know if I would even call that English, really.
Okay.
Like, I have to remember to say flip flops instead of thongs whenever I talk to you guys.
I knew about that.
It's only an Aussie thing. We call them thongs. Yeah, I'm just going to the beach in my thongs.
I had to be reminded of it, but I knew about that. Yeah, there's lots of different weird things. Like different vernacular. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm kind of blanking out on some.
Well, we don't say gas, but we actually say petrol.
Yeah, the British do that too, though. We say gas.
Yeah, I know you guys say gas,
and the Americans say gas.
My dad actually called it petrol when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's technically gasoline, so. That's just short for gasoline.
He just did it because he liked to say petrol, not because it was just a quirk. Like, it wasn't like everybody else called it gas, but he called it petrol. Like, he also said, because he would say words weird on purpose, like humidity. He would say humidity.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because, I don't know, he just had some weird little quirks like that.
Yeah, that's because we actually don't say gasoline. So if Australians say gasoline, we would call it gas because we abbreviate everything.
Yeah. Yeah, we abbreviate a lot too. All right.
And usually by adding things on the end of it, like instead of saying football, you say footy, or
Or Timmy's.
we're not having a
Or
barbecue, we're having a Barbie.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we do that a lot. Especially with things that we really like Tim Hortons is Timmy's. 2 milk, 2 cream is double double. What else do we have? Actually, we probably have a lot of things that I think are just really normal that I'll say them and you'll be like, what?
Yeah, we don't have bagged milk, so.
Oh yes, yes. Not all of Canada has bagged milk, but Ontario does.
Has what?
Bagged milk.
Their milk comes in bags and not bottles.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, entertain people.
Interesting. Bagged milk.
Yeah, I'd rather have a bottle.
I don't think that I've ever seen bagged milk. I don't think. Oh, is she going to get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there are people who do powdered milk, and that is something that I do not understand.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink powdered milk. It's all right for cooking with, but it's not good for.
Okay, this always weirds out people not from Canada, but this is how we get our milk. Just in a bag. We get 4 of these, 4 liters, and 3 of these.
Mind you, we get wine like that, so.
So how do you pour? What do you pour it into?
Oh, we have a jug that holds it, and then you just cut off the end.
Oh, so it goes into a you fit kind of like a bottle.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like a pitcher, and you sit it in there, and then it.
Oh.
Yeah, but it actually works kind of really well because you're not using like cardboard or whatever, and it keeps a little bit better. So yeah, but this is how we get our milk.
Interesting.
Which I thought everyone got their milk like this. It weirds out people that aren't from. I think it's only Ontario and Quebec that does that, though. Maybe BC.
Is it a cold thing? Is it because it stops it freezing or something?
No. My dad freezes milk. Gross.
That's why would you? Yeah, it separates when you freeze it.
Yeah, it does, and it's. I mean, you could much more easily unseparate it by shaking it, but that still doesn't. Really get everything back. It's. I mean, I guess he doesn't. I guess they don't use a lot of milk over there, but still.
Interesting.
Okay, so. It's in South America, Iran, Israel, Eastern Europe, the Baltics, the UK, Canada.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it would maybe reduce waste because you're not having to throw away all the bottles, but I mean, you do have the plastic bags. Do you guys have a pretty robust recycling?
Yeah, we recycle these.
Yeah.
We wash them out. Most people wash them out and then recycle them, but I think that's just because they don't want the rotting milk smell.
Well, yeah, because it stinks.
I wish I had a.
So it makes sense.
I mean, they're in Australia apparently.
Yeah, there are some places you can get them, but.
So yeah, it started as a Canadian thing, but I guess it's spread. Apparently, it was in the States until the 80s.
Yeah, in the US, we have to make things as wasteful and as ridiculous as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's America.
We can get away with it. We can get away with it because we have a very robust recycling system. I actually worked sorting recycling for a short time a while back, and yeah, it's like they get everything they can possibly get out, and it's a business. They're making money off of it too, right?
Well, sure. Wait, I
But
mean, to be honest, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I'm totally okay with them making money off recycling. Um, just just recycle. Like,
yeah,
people in the States do not recycle like pretty much most other places, like most other
mm,
first world countries. People in the US do not recycle like that. And it's really unfortunate. Because I think it's important to do. I do recycle, and I mean, I just think it's beneficial. I think it's beneficial for, you know, the entire world. So
mhm.
just it's not that hard to do. So I don't get why people don't do it.
Yeah, and
Australia has 2 bins, one for recycling and one for normal waste.
yeah, we do that. I mean, some places like Toronto, they do every other is garbage,
Yeah,
and
every other week.
other week is recycling. In my
Yeah.
little city, we do both every week, which is so much easier. But we have between 80 and 100,000 people, so it's not like um, we're overworked or anything for that. Um, so uh, yeah.
Well, so like here they do, not everywhere picks up recycling, but a lot of places will pick up recycling and there's a separate bin for it, but like they always bring it and you have to request it. You have to request it. And sometimes you have to pay for the recycling bin. You don't have to pay for the trash bin, but you do have to pay for the recycling bin. Not everywhere, but some places, depending on your city. Usually that's city based.
We have to pay for both.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Uh,
$5 for a recycling bin, so it's not that big a deal.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not that
I think
much.
we get a free one
But
every years or something like that.
you have to pay. Do you have to pay? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. You have to pay for it too.
Sorry, we get a free one, I think, every 2 years. But
Oh yeah.
if somebody needs it or it gets damaged in between, you have to pay for it.
Okay. But I mean the recycling bin is so small. It's like a mail bucket
Oh,
instead of it's not like a trash bin, which is ridiculous because I feel like your recycling bin should be the big bin and your
Yeah, it is.
trash bin
Yeah,
should be
Our
our
recycling
recycling bins are maybe, oh, they're definitely not the size of a trash bin.
yeah.
But they're definitely not like the size of a mailbox either. I don't even have a recycling bin. Mine keeps getting stolen, so I just use dollar store recyclable bags to put my recycling in.
Mm. Yeah.
And take it out like that because it keeps going missing. I've bought like 3 of them
Oh my
in
goodness.
the year and a half since I've moved here. I don't know if they keep getting stolen. They can get blown away in the wind once they're emptied, and
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's got to be pretty windy to do that here.
it's just a blue bin that's like maybe this by this. Or you can get big ones, but they're pretty light when they're empty. The big ones actually blow away considerably faster, or considerably easier because they have larger surface area and not much more weight. So yeah, but like I don't, I do not generate a terribly huge amount of garbage or recycling in my daily life, anyways. So I usually do mine like every couple of weeks on average, maybe every other week if I'm really bad every week, but I just don't generate that much garbage personally, so it's not a huge thing.
I'll be done soon. Okay.
We are really off topic here,
That's
but it's
okay.
great. And
I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I think having other conversation is good. This stuff is important to talk about. The
yes,
abortion issue is important to talk about. The bills that are passing, it's important to talk about. I do think there is a global trend toward conservatism that I don't quite understand, because I don't think that the public trends that way. So I'm not sure why the people in power are trending that way. It's a little bit confusing, but there's only so much about it that you can say. In the US, we're just sitting here waiting. As the bills are passed, um, they are being challenged legally. In Alabama, the Alabama bill has been challenged by the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. Who's challenged the ACLU and Planned Parenthood have both come together to challenge the law in Alabama, so it can't go into effect while it's in appeals. So, and the other bills are in similar states, so they actually can't go into effect.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So, but you know, I did talk to Andrew Seidel a few weeks ago. He is an attorney for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and he thinks that when it gets to the Supreme Court that they'll overturn Roe, and I hope he's wrong. I really hope that he's wrong.
That'd be dreadful.
But I mean, you know, it's one of those things. I was sure that Trump would never get elected. I was like, there's no way. There's no way he's going to get elected. It's not going to happen. And it happened. And then other things, it's like, there's no way that's going to happen. And then it happens. And so I'm really wary of saying that there's no way that they'll overturn Roe. I used to think there was no way they'd ever overturn it, but now I don't know. So really, we're just kind of in a wait and see kind of game. There's literally nothing that as a regular citizen we can do about it, to be honest. I mean, we can vote, but we only ever, you know, we don't get to vote on that issue. We get to vote who's in office. And when you live in an area like I do, it's very difficult to have your vote matter. It's really difficult to make a difference, but we try. So
now that does bring up one question. Like anything that one Canadian government does, the next government can technically could easily undo. It's not always that easy to undo, but any law set can pretty much be undone by the next government if they don't like it. That's actually happened recently with Ford, who is like worse than Trump because he's actually smart. Yeah, he's like Trump but smart. Yeah, he's like.
So he's not like Trump then. He's just got Trump ideology.
Yeah, he's Trump ideology, but he's at least got most of a brain.
Interesting.
And yeah, like his parliament actually, like his caucus told him to shut the fuck up on some things because they want to be voted again.
Right.
But like they basically walked in and undid things that our previous liberal government here in Ontario did, and this is a common thing. It like basically the two sides are fighting over what sticks and what doesn't. Some things stick, some things get immediately undone. How does that work in the States? Like, could the next governor or could the next president just walk in and say, you know, assuming the Supreme Court isn't involved, because I believe they have precedent, or they can tell the government what to go do with itself. But how does that work? Can they just walk in and say no, or say we're undoing this?
Well, it depends on how the regulation is passed. So when Trump signs executive orders about shit, yes, the new president can walk in and undo every single executive order that Trump signed. So that's easy. Now there are obviously consequences and of doing things like that, of doing and undoing, and there are people in the balance of those kinds of things. And so it's not, what happens after is not always easy to work through, but if it's an executive order, yes, it's easy. If it's passed by Congress, no, it's not easy. You can't just undo it. If it is a case that's decided on by the Supreme Court or by a lower court even, it can't just be undone. Lower courts also set precedent, and the Supreme Court only takes up cases if they feel it's necessary to do so. And so then the lower court, whatever the lower court was that made that decision, is the one that set the precedent if the Supreme Court doesn't take it up. So right now, the abortion laws are being passed by state governments. They are in appeals court, and they will stay in appeals court until they're decided. And once they're decided, then they might go further up the chain. I mean, they're gonna go further up the chain, right? But because either way, if the appeals court says this is unconstitutional, you can't do this, then the other side's going to sue and take it further up to the next level. So either way this goes, it's going to go up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to have to address it because so many states are doing it right now. The Supreme Court is not going to have a choice in this matter. They will have to take it up.
Okay.
So there's not an easy way to undo these.
Okay. So the state governments will go through the Supreme Court then.
Eventually.
Or not through the Supreme Court, but through the court system as opposed to like an internal government system.
Yes, they'll have to go through the appeals process up through the different levels of the court system.
Which is what they want.
Yeah. That's what they want. But like if so say in 2020, Ohio, for example, let's use Ohio for an example, because sometimes Ohio, it hasn't happened recently, but sometimes Ohio goes blue. They're one of those purple states, sort of. They're more red now. They're more reddish purple now, but they're considered a purple.
Sorry, and in the states, red is the conservatives and blue is the liberals. Okay.
Sorry. Yes. Red is conservative, blue is liberal, and states that kind of switch back and forth or have a pretty equal number of liberals and conservatives are called purple.
Okay.
Michigan is generally a purple state. Florida is a purple state. Ohio typically is a purple state. There are several states that Wisconsin usually goes blue, but it's been going red lately. So I don't know if Wisconsin would be considered purple or not, but in Ohio, a state that's a purple state, say that the legislature was elected and all of it then was mostly liberal, and they could write a new bill that protected abortion. The problem is you still have this other law hanging out there that's now in the appeals process. And I don't believe that there's a way to get it out. And just, I don't, that would be, I don't know. I can't think of any cases where a law has been passed that has been contradictory to a previous law that's been passed that's currently in appeals. I can't think of anything in which that's happened to know if there's a process for that. I don't believe so, but there could be.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that. And I have one more question, just because I'm completely oblivious to how your government works internally. How does Congress work? Just a brief.
State Congress or federal Congress? Okay, so we have governments at different levels.
We have the same.
Local, state governments. We do have state Congress. We have every state has a Senate and a representative body, right?
Okay.
And then the federal, we have Congress is split into two houses. Technically, you have the Senate, which is 50 members. They have the Senate is they have I think 6-year terms. The Senate 2 years, and the House or 6. I can't remember which one has.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
But so you have the Senate, which is 50 people, 2 from each state. All right, every state gets 2 senators. Then you have the House of Representatives, and the number of representatives a state has is based on the population of that state.
Okay.
The House of Representatives is far more representative of the population, in that if there is an area of California that is mostly, say, Hispanic, they are probably more likely to vote in somebody who is Hispanic. And so you have a lot more diversity in the House of Representatives than you do in the Senate. The Senate is mostly white, mostly male, and it's very much not representative of the population base. But both the House and the Senate have to pass a bill in order for it to get to the president for signature. So sometimes it goes through the Senate first and sometimes it goes through the House first. Usually what happens is they'll each pass a different but similar version of a bill, and then they'll have to go into a process, and the name of the process is escaping me, but basically they have to make the bills match. So they might have to talk to each other and say, okay, you pull this part out and we'll add this part in, and they basically have to reconcile the two
That
bills.
seems unnecessary. But okay, so and your senators and Congress people are elected?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's interesting how that works. Okay. So that
Nick in the chat says that Nebraska has a unicameral, so Nebraska probably only has a Senate. Is that right?
okay.
I'm asking Nick, sorry. Or maybe they just have a Congress. I'm not really sure how that works in Nebraska, but the different state governments can set it up how they feel is best.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of have I guess a similar system. Basically, if you take how I believe your electoral college works, and you send them to Congress, and basically the president or prime minister would be part of that, then that's kind of how, like, I did not vote for Justin Trudeau. I voted for Miriam Monsef, our local liberal MP. And she's my voice in the parliament, and like, I actually have decent access. She's actually a minister, so that's pretty cool. Actually, also, I'm part of the Liberal Party and helped her get nominated and elected, aside from just voting for her. But like, she has the same power in Parliament, theoretically, as Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, because everybody basically gets one vote. So now Trudeau has a huge amount of influence, and since Harper, prime ministers have been doing more and more telling their members of parliament how to vote on bills. Whereas before Harper, there was a lot of, will this go through or not? Because our members of parliament tended to listen to more to their constituents, like they're supposed to, than the person running the party. Unfortunately, that's a little less now. But that's basically how it works. And then after it's passed through Parliament, it goes to our Senate. Our Senate is stupid. It's like, people are appointed by the Prime Minister, and our Senate is just our Senate is a train wreck in a dumpster fire.
Oh wow! Because our Senate is elected, unlike yours.
Nope, ours is not elected.
So both our houses are fully elected.
Yep.
The Senate is more even amongst the states, regardless of population.
Okay.
The lower house, the House of Reps, is based on your population. So
yeah.
Your state's more popular. You have more representatives.
Our house, our Senate is so useless. I'm not even entirely sure how it works, and it really doesn't.
We also have compulsory voting, so we have to vote.
Oh yeah. Trudeau tried to get that in. But the problem with our Senate is it's excessively corrupt. Like, if you look up Mike Duffy or Brazeau or a few others, there's been some extremely horrendous scandals coming from our Senate. It's just our Senate can pass or not pass a bill, but it's just hyper partisan, appointed by the Prime Minister when a spot opens up. I think they're for life. And it's just horrible. People want to abolish our Senate. I would rather it be reformed and voted for.
Sorry, mate, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm a firm believer that within Parliament it should be secret ballot. There shouldn't be any of this A's and nays.
Oh, that's
Our
it.
representatives should secretly vote on topics. So as we do when we vote for them, it should be a private vote. I realize that takes away some accountability.
Yes.
But if you get to know your representative, you will know how they're going to vote.
Exactly. And if your representative does what they're supposed to do and listens to their constituents, then they're going to vote how the people who voted them in want them to vote anyways. And some of our some of our MPs do, some of them don't. Yeah, I do like the idea of a secret ballot, because that would really, really take a lot. That would decentralize power away from the party leader, and that I think is important, because that's one of the things that that's one of the things that our government has over the American government, is in theory, a prime minister can't just come in, sign an executive order or whatever, and say we're doing this. Too bad.
Right.
Like, it has to go through Parliament, and it has to go. And bills have failed. I mean, I've heard that the Australian situation has been kind of insane for changing governments lately.
It's mental. We have had more prime ministers and elections in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
But
anyone around the world looking at our political system goes, "You guys are nuts."
Yeah. We've had a three-peat, followed by another Liberal government with another prime minister, followed by another three-peat, and this is Trudeau's first term, and I hope it's not. So that is our government for like most of my life. Of course, that happened because back in the 80s, Brian Mulroney failed so badly that in the 1993 election, the Conservative Party only got 3 seats and lost official party standing. That's how unpopular they were.
Wow.
But that was really that kind of fractured the entire Conservatives for a long time. And then John Chrétien, he put our country back together. Like, our best prime minister ever, I swear.
Anyway, we might have to wind up soon, because
yeah, we probably should. Sorry.
I think we've covered everything, and I think
Yeah.
Excuse me, Kaitlyn.
Yeah. I just wanted to know how
to give GE his studio back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know how things worked, to know if so that we could know if, like, how easily this stuff is undoable.
Not. It's not.
No.
That's that's something that I would address. And
that makes it particularly scary for you guys, because at least over here, and I think in Canada, things can be changed.
Yeah, we
they're done by referendum, and then it's really hard to change things.
Yeah,
it's a long process. And if they do, once these cases do get to the Supreme Court, and they decide on it, if they decide against Roe, it's going to take a whole, well, not against Roe, but if they decide in favor of banning abortion, then it will be federal law across all of the states. And then it's going to take states getting new governments in to pass laws allowing abortion, and then those laws working their way through being challenged, then working their way through the appeals process up to the Supreme Court. It's not easy.
That's really rough. But thank you. Now I have a better understanding of some of the more specifics of how your government works, because I've always been like, well, can't the next person just fix that?
Wouldn't that be nice? Except there is a reason why they have it structured like they do, because every 4 years then, or 8, whatever, you would have, one group come in and do this, and then the next group come in and undo, and then they redo and undo and redo and undo, and that puts undue stress on the population, and the economy and industry and everything else. So that can create a lot of problems.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's a good thing, but it's also a difficult thing. And like I said, it depends on how something's passed, because Congress can, like a new Congress can pass a law, undoing or redo, redoing something, and then get signed by the president a lot easier than something that's been through the court system and set precedent through the Supreme Court.
Exactly. And I think that's might be one of the reasons why our parliaments are so vicious compared to your Congress, is because it's a lot easier to undo things. So people are maybe fighting a little bit more passionately to keep or get things done. So that might be an explanation there. But thank you very much for explaining that.
Sure.
All right, so yeah, we should probably give John back his studio.
You want to shout yourself out, Kaitlyn?
Yeah, sorry for taking up all of your night. But there was a lot of good talking.
I really appreciate you guys asking me to be on your first episode, or any episode really. It's really an honor. I'm happy to be here.
It's an honor to have you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And do you have anything interesting coming up?
No, not really. I actually just took a final exam because I'm getting my master's in systems engineering right now. So I just finished up a final exam. I have 2 more classes until I'm done. And so I kind of, all of the YouTube stuff for me personally is kind of on hold a little bit until I finish my degree, just because I only have so much time. But I still do my currently Tuesday shows on NonSequitur, on the NonSequitur channel called Opinionated, and those are going to be switching to Wednesdays for about 5 weeks during the summer, because my summer class is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so Wednesday is my only day, and my only free day, and I do a show on YouTube. So yeah, it's a crazy life, but I like it. So I don't have anything particular coming out or up, but
Okay, well, thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. So that's it. We will probably be doing our next show on Saturdays. This one was just a scheduling thing with getting Kaitlyn on. Oh, that's okay. It actually worked. We got to go on another show last night, and at 7 o'clock, I was in no position to be doing anything other than being absurd on Twitter or whatever. I don't even remember what I was doing. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm still a little off, but I am getting better on the day. But
you'll feel better soon.
Thanks. I'm back up to about 80%.
Good.
Yeah, that is it for this one, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Bye.
Yeah, all the usual, like, subscribe, and all that.
Oh yeah, all that fun stuff. Yeah, like, subscribe, go laugh at my Twitter, whatever.
Yes, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Nuance Nonsense.
Oh, thank you.